אנחנו נמצאים בתקופה אפלה שכמותה לא ידענו. דווקא בימים האלה ישנה חשיבות מיוחדת לקרוא לדברים בשמם. שני הדוחות שיוצגו בפניכם מיד, אשר נכתבו על ידי שני ארגוני זכויות אדם מרכזיים הפועלים בישראל מזה עשרות שנים, רופאים לזכויות אדם ובצלם, ומתבססים על מחקר יסודי ומעמיק, הגיעו למסקנה אחת: ישראל מבצעת ג'נוסייד בעזה. הפשע הזה חייב להיפסק מיד. אחריות זו מוטלת בראש ובראשונה על ממשלת ישראל, אך גם על הקהילה הבינלאומית. לנקוט בכל אמצעי שהחוק הבינלאומי מאפשר, כדי לשים סוף לפשע שממשיך לגבות קורבנות ברגעים אלו ממש, במרחק של 70 קילומטר מכאן. في هاي الأيام نحن موجودين في فترة مظلمة لم نعرف مثلها من قبل. بالتالي مهم جدا أن نسمي الأشياء بمسمياتها. بعد قليل سنعرض عليكم تقريرين كتبتهما أطباء لحقوق الإنسان وبצלם اللي هم منظمات حقوق إنسان رئيسيات وبيعملوا في إسرائيل منذ عشرات سنوات. المنظمتين وبعد تحليل دقيق وعميق توصلوا لاستنتاج واحد: إسرائيل تنفذ إبادة جماعية في غزة. هذه الأعمال الإجرامية يجب أن تتوقف على الفور. المسؤولية تقع أولاً قبل كل شيء على حكومة إسرائيل، ولكن أيضاً على المجتمع الدولي. يجب استخدام كل الوسائل الممكنة بموجب القانون الدولي لوقف الجرائم المستمرة التي ما تزال توقع ضحايا حتى هذه اللحظة. كل هذا يحدث على بعد 70 كيلومتر منا.
We are living through a dark time, the likes of which we have never known.
No, we can't.
It is precisely at this moment that it is especially important to call things by their name. The two reports that will be presented to you shortly, written by two leading human rights organizations, Accusations for Human Rights and B'Tselem, both of which have been active in Israel for decades, are based on thorough and in-depth research and have reached a single conclusion: Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. This crime must stop immediately. The primary responsibility lies with the Israeli government, but also with the international community to take every measure permitted by international law to put an end to a crime that continues to claim victims at this very moment, just 70 kilometers away from here.
את הדוח שאנחנו מפרסמים היום לא האמנו שנכתוב, אבל בחודשים האחרונים אנחנו עדים למציאות שלא הותירה לנו ברירה אלא להכיר באמת. ישראל מבצעת ג'נוסייד בפלסטינים ברצועת עזה. הדוח שאנחנו בבצלם כתבנו מציג עובדות, נתונים ועדויות על האופן שבו ישראל פועלת בצורה שיטתית, מתואמת ומכוונת להרס הפלסטינים בעזה כקבוצה. על כך הצהירו נציגי הציבור הישראלים אין ספור פעמים, כך קורה בפועל ברצועה, וזוהי בדיוק ההגדרה של ג'נוסייד. התקפה מתואמת מתוך כוונה להרוס קבוצה ככזו. מזה 22 חודשים שאנחנו שומעים הצהרות מפורשות של ההנהגה הישראלית ושל מפקדי הצבא שאומרים בדיוק מה הם מתכוונים לעשות. להרעיב, לחסל, לשטח את עזה, מקום שבו מבחינתם אין אנשים חפים מפשע. ואז הם שלחו את הצבא הישראלי לעשות בדיוק את מה שהם הבטיחו. כך, מזה 22 חודשים אנחנו עדים להרג אזרחים בהיקף חסר תקדים, להרעבה מכוונת, להכירה המונית בכפייה ולהרס מוחלט של תשתיות שמאפשרות קיום אנושי או חברתי. תושבי עזה, עקורים, מופצצים, מורעבים, נותרו מופשטים לחלוטין מאנושיותם ומזכויותיהם. החלק הראשון של הדוח שלנו מתאר בדיוק את זה, את הפרקטיקות שבאמצעותן מתבצע הג'נוסייד והתוצאות האיומות שלהן בשטח. בחלק השני של הדוח אנחנו מתארים מהם התנאים שאפשרו את הפיכתו של המשטר הישראלי למשטר ג'נוסיידלי. לאורך ההיסטוריה מרבית העמים שביצעו ג'נוסייד לא הבינו בזמן אמת את המשמעות של המעשים שלהם. לכל ג'נוסייד בהיסטוריה הייתה הצדקה מבחינת מבצעיו. היגיון של הגנה עצמית מפני סכנה קיומית, של מלחמת אין ברירה, או טענה שהקורבנות הביאו את זה על עצמם. במקרים רבים של ג'נוסייד לאורך ההיסטוריה ניתן גם לסמן אירוע מניע או טריגר לג'נוסייד. המתקפה האיומה והנפשעת של חמאס וארגונים אחרים ב7 באוקטובר, שעוררה בקרב הציבור הישראלי וגם אצל כולנו כאן כאב ופחד בלתי נתפסים, הייתה אירוע מניע שכזה. אסור ואי אפשר להעמיד בזוועתיות של מתקפת חמאס על עוטף עזה באותו יום. הייתה זו התקפה נפשעת שכוונה ברובה נגד אזרחים ושכללה אין ספור פשעים חמורים שהדעת לא יכולה לסבול. אבל למרות שה7 באוקטובר היה כוח מניע משמעותי, נדרשו תנאים נוספים שיאפשרו את הג'נוסייד. תהליכים עמוקים של דה-הומניזציה של הפלסטינים, בעיקר ברצועת עזה, אבל לא רק, קידום אידיאולוגיות של כיבוש שטחים, של עליונות יהודית, של דיכוי עם אחר, אלו תהליכים שנמשכו שנים רבות ושהפכו את החברה הישראלית לכזו שמסוגלת למחוק את אנושיותם של בני אדם ולאבד כל אמפתיה או מחויבות מוסרית כלפיהם. זהו שילוב הנסיבות האיומות שהוביל אותנו למציאות שאנחנו רואים היום. עשרות שנים של חיים תחת משטר של הפרדה ופחד, בשילוב עם הטראומה הקולקטיבית של ה7 באוקטובר, בתקופה שבה עומדת בשלטון הממשלה הימנית הקיצונית ביותר שהייתה כאן מאז ומעולם. כל אלו יחד יצרו את התנאים להשמדה המכוונת של עם אחר. זוהי קריאה לעזרה, אך גם קריאת אזהרה. בעזה המצב מחמיר עם כל יום שעובר. ההפצצות ממשיכות, ילדים ממשיכים למות ברעב. אנשים נורים למוות כשהם מנסים להשיג מזון או מתים בגלל היעדר טיפול רפואי. ובאותו זמן ניצב גם חשש ממשי לחיי הפלסטינים בגדה המערבית. בגדה המערבית אנחנו עדים לאלימות בהיקפים חסרי תקדים כלפי פלסטינים ולזליגה של הפרקטיקות שבהן נוקט המשטר הישראלי בעזה. זה לא מפתיע. המשטר הוא אותו משטר, הצבא הוא אותו צבא, ולפלסטינים שחיים כאן אין שום מנגנון מקומי או בינלאומי שמגן עליהם. לכן אנחנו מחויבים להצביע על כך ולהזהיר. כל טריגר קטן יכול לגרום לג'נוסייד להתרחב גם ליתר האזורים שנמצאים תחת שליטה ישראלית. אני אסיים בדברים הבאים. לדוח שכתבנו קראנו הג'נוסייד שלנו, כי זה מה שהוא. ג'נוסייד שנעשה באנשים שחיים כאן על ידי האנשים שחיים כאן. כדי לכתוב את הדוח הזה נדרשנו, ישראלים ופלסטינים, להתבונן במציאות הזאת באופן משותף, מנקודת המבט של בני האדם שחיים על האדמה הזאת. ביחד אנחנו מעידים עכשיו מולכם על המציאות כפי שהיא, כמגיני זכויות אדם וכפלסטינים וישראלים שחיים בין הירדן והים. מדינת ישראל מבצעת ג'נוסייד ברצועת עזה, ומול העובדה הזאת, מול ג'נוסייד, חובה להשמיע קול ולהתנגד. הקהילה הבינלאומית לא רק כשלה בחובתה לעצור את הזוועות, אלא גם חולקת אחריות לאור התמיכה שהיא מעניקה לישראל, שמאפשרת לה ליישם את מדיניות ההרס. אנחנו קוראים לפעולה דחופה של הקהילה הבינלאומית, של החברה הישראלית ושל כל אדם שמקשיב לנו עכשיו. ג'נוסייד במהותו הוא התקפה על האנושיות עצמה, וככזה הוא תמיד מעמיד אותנו בפני השאלה, מה זה אומר להיות אנושי? התשובה בימים אלו היא שלהיות אנושי זה לעשות כל מה שאפשר כדי לעצור את הג'נוסייד. תודה. The report we are publishing today is one we never imagined we would have to write. But in recent months we have been witnessing a reality that has left us no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The report written by us at B'Tselem presents facts, data, and testimonies about how Israel is acting in a deliberate, coordinated, and systematic way to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza, in an attack that aimed at the entire group as such. This has been declared countless times by Israeli officials. This is what is happening on the ground, and this is precisely the definition of genocide. For the past 22 months, we have heard clear statements from the Israeli leadership and military commanders saying precisely what they intend to do: to starve, destroy, and flatten Gaza, a place where no one is considered innocent in their eyes. And then they sent the military in to do just that, exactly as they promised. So for the past 22 months, we have witnessed unprecedented levels of civilian killings, of deliberate starvation, forced mass displacement, and the total destruction of most infrastructure necessary for human and social existence. The people of Gaza have been displaced, bombed, and starved, left completely stripped of their humanity and rights. The first part of our report described exactly that, the practices through which the genocide is being carried out and their devastating consequences on the ground. The second part of the report, in the second part of the report, we describe the conditions that made it possible for the Israeli regime to become a regime that commits genocide. Throughout history, most societies that committed genocide didn't understand at the time the meaning of what they are doing. Throughout history, most societies that committed genocide did not understand at the time the meaning of what they were doing. Every genocide in history has had a justification, at least in the eyes of those who committed it. A story of self-defense in the face of existential threat, of a war of no choice, or of victims who had brought it on themselves. In many historical cases of genocide, we can identify a triggering event. The horrific and criminal Hamas-led attack on October 7th was such an event. It caused unbelievable pain and fear for Israelis, including us here. We must not and cannot downplay the horror of this attack. It was assault directed mostly at civilians that included countless of grave crimes. Yet, although October 7th was a significant catalyst, other conditions were required in order for the genocide to become possible. Deep processes of dehumanizing of Palestinians, especially in Gaza, the promotion of ideologies of occupation, of Jewish supremacy, of oppression, all these have shaped Israeli society into one capable of erasing people's humanity and losing all empathy or moral obligation towards them. This is a dreadful combination of circumstances that brought us to the reality we are witnessing today. Decades of life under a regime built on separation and fear, together with a collective trauma of October 7th, at the time when the most extreme right-wing government in the history of Israel is in power. Together, this created the conditions for a deliberate destruction of the Palestinian people in Gaza. This is a call for help, but also a warning. In Gaza, the situation worsens with each passing day. The bombings continue, children keep dying of starvation, people are being shot to death while trying to get food, or die due to lack of medical aid. At the same time, there is also a very real danger to the lives of Palestinians across all areas under Israeli control. In the West Bank, we are witnessing violence on an unprecedented scale and a spillover of the same practices Israel is using in Gaza. This comes as no surprise. The regime is the same regime, the army is the same army, and there is no mechanism, either local or international, to offer protection to Palestinians. That's why we are compelled to state this clearly and issue a clear warning. Any small trigger could lead the genocide to expand to other parts of the area under Israeli regime. I will end with this. We call this report our genocide because that's what it is. A genocide committed against people who live here by the people who live here. In order to write this report, we, Israelis and Palestinians, had to look at reality together through the shared perspective of the human beings who live on this land. Together, we stand before you now to bear witness to this reality. As human rights defenders, as Israelis and Palestinians who live between the river and the sea. The state of Israel is committing genocide in the Gaza Strip. And in the face of this fact, in the face of genocide, our duty is to struggle to stop it. The international community has not only failed in its duty to stop the atrocities, but also share responsibility by providing support that enables Israel acts of destruction. We call for an urgent action from international community, from the Israeli society, and from every person who's listening to us. Genocide, at its core, is an assault on humanity itself. And as such, it forces us to ask, what does it mean to be human? The answer these days must come in action.
My name is Karim Jubran. I'm a Palestinian. I live in East Jerusalem. I have lived my whole life under the Israeli apartheid regime and occupation, with no citizenship rights. I have worked in B'Tselem for 21 years, and I am director of the field research. For 21 years, I have received reports and testimonies about crimes committed by the Israeli occupation all over the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Violence, humiliation, killings. I thought I had seen everything. But what we are seeing in Gaza now is something we have never seen before. I am afraid that if it doesn't stop now, things will get even worse. I am already a grandfather, and I always know my grandchildren would face a hard future here. But now I am afraid that we'll have no future at all. It is as simple as that. When Israel bombed Gaza in 2008 and killed more than 1,000 Palestinians, people were shocked. In the 2014, Israel killed more than 2,000 Palestinians in Gaza. In 2018, during the Great March of Return, Israel placed snipers who shot participants with live ammunition and killed over 230 people, including children, journalists, and medicists. We watched all this with horror, and we saw that no one was held accountable. Already, then we understood that for the Israeli system, Palestinian lives mean nothing. Still, deep inside, we didn't believe we would see the day that Israel would destroy all Gaza. Now we are seeing it happened in a clear, systematic, and planned way. For years, the international community doesn't almost nothing done nothing to stop Israeli violence, the occupation, and apartheid. The lack of action is now allowing the genocide to happen. World leaders, especially in the United States and Europe, that are not taking real steps to stop it are sharing responsibility in the horrors. The report we wrote is based on testimonies, data, and investigations. The report shows a terrible picture: mass killing, deliberate destruction of infrastructure and living conditions, total destruction of the social fabric of schools, universities, hospitals, mass arrests, abuse of prisoners, hunger, forced displacement. At the moment, no one can truly understand the size of the catastrophe. Every day, we learn about new horrors. Since October 7, at least 58,000 people have been killed, which is about 3% of the population of Gaza. But the current estimate is that this number is much higher. Estimate is that this number is much higher. More than 2,200 families have been completely erased. 93% of the population of Gaza is suffering severe food insecurity. Of those, 244,000 is what's called catastrophic hunger. The fifth and most severe level. Over the last few days, there was been a dramatic increase in the number of people dying from starvation, and the situation is only getting worse. Israel has also added the ethnic cleansing of Gaza to the official goals of the war. In the report, we analyze how all this is direct result of policy openly declared by Israeli leaders and military commanders. That leads us to clear conclusion. Israel is working in a deliberate, coordinated way to destroy Palestinian society in Gaza. That is the definition of genocide. You must understand what it means that the Israeli regime is committing genocide. It means we are in a new phase. We need to understand what this means for everyone in the region. It means that for the Israeli regime, killing, starving, and destroying is an acceptable way to ensure Jewish supremacy. That fact that affects all Palestinians, not just those in Gaza. At B'Tselem, we have also documented a sharp rise in Israeli violence in the West Bank. Israel is doing everything to break the spirit of the Palestinian people, using checkpoints, arrests, and lockdowns on whole cities. We are seeing more airstrikes and demolition of neighborhoods in West Bank cities. Tens of thousands of people have already been displaced by the army. Settlers have driven out 38 Palestinian communities from their homes with full backing from the state and the army. Dozens of other communities are in immediate danger. Forced mass displacement in the West Bank is happening right now. Anyone who doesn't understand Israel is committing genocide in Gaza is choosing to look away. And anyone who thinks that genocide will stay only in Gaza is also closing their eyes. Powerful forces within the leadership of Israel have declared that they are preparing to annex the West Bank. For them, the fate of Jenin is the same as the fate of Jabalia. They don't want to see Palestinians here. In our report, we warn that appropriate trigger can bring the genocide to Jenin and Nablus, Hebron. Every Palestinian grows up with stories of the Nakba of 1948. Today we were watching our worst nightmares come true. I want to say something about the name we choose for the report, our genocide. In this darkness, the fact that Palestinians and Israelis at B'Tselem are working together, resisting together, fighting together, gives a glimmer of hope. We are all paying a price. First of all, Palestinians in Gaza, and also in the West Bank and inside Israel, are paying a heavy price. But I appreciate the courage of my Jewish colleagues who are paying a social and personal price for speaking the truth and standing up for humanistic values. We will not give up. This is our homeland. We will stay and struggle for our freedom. When genocide is happening, every person in the world must ask themselves, am I standing by, or am I doing everything I can to stop it? Thank you.
Khulud found out she was pregnant 1 month before the war began. Then the bombing started, and her family was displaced again and again, walking for hours with no access to care. That is what Khulud told us in an interview. We continued through the war, knowing hospitals were full of the dead, no anesthesia, no care for me or for the baby. I was terrified that I would give birth and bleed to death because there was no one to help us. We walked constantly exhausted and afraid something terrible would happen to me or the baby. The hospital was far away from where we were. There were no checkups, no monitoring, no support. Khulud gave birth while displaced, far from any functioning hospital, afraid every step of the way. Today, there are 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza. Next month, 5,500 are expected to give birth, 1,400 by C-section. None will deliver in safe, equipped hospitals. Many, like Khulud, will give birth in overcrowded tents, without anesthesia, without clean water, without trained staff. Since the war began, care has collapsed. Birth rates have dropped by 41%. 1 in 5 babies is born preterm or underweight. 92% of infants aged 6 months to 2 years are not getting enough to eat. This happened because Israel blocked aid, denied care, destroyed hospitals, along every life-sustaining support. For nearly 2 years, Palestinians, international volunteers, and humanitarian organizations have raised the alarm. Israeli army is targeting hospitals, cutting off fuel and aid, issuing evacuation orders, and bombing indiscriminately, forcing entire communities to flee. Doctors are killed and unlawfully detained and tortured. It is destroying health infrastructure systematically. This is not chaos. This is a strategy. The report Physicians for Human Rights Israel are publishing today shows a systematic attack on health. It is a deliberate, cumulative dismantling of Gaza's health system, and with it, its people's very ability to survive. As Israel bombed and besieged hospitals, cut off fuel to hospitals in northern Gaza in the beginning of the war, patients and displaced families were forced to flee south, overwhelming already fragile, barely functioning facilities in Deir el-Balah, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. The collapse of care in one area triggered breakdowns everywhere. When Al-Shifa collapsed in the beginning of the war, Al-Nasser was flooded with patients. When Al-Nasser was dismantled, the European hospital began to break down. With each assault, Israel destroyed more hospitals, killed and detained more staff members, and blocked more essential services. But this was not just a war on hospitals. It is a war on the conditions of life that make survival even possible. Israel destroyed water infrastructure, bakeries, farmland, and blocked or weaponized aid. This triggered severe malnutrition spreading through the Strip, especially among children. With hospitals bombed, equipment destroyed, and medications depleted, long-term care is now virtually impossible. Dialysis, maternal care, cancer treatment, diabetes management, all have collapsed. Life expectancy in Gaza has already dropped by nearly 35 years. Even if Israel ends its military offensive today, the damage has been done to Gaza's health system will continue to kill through starvation, through infection, through chronic disease. Deaths that could be prevented will continue for years. This is not a temporary crisis. It is a deliberate removal of a population's ability to survive. This is not a collateral damage. This is not a side effect of the war. This is a systematic creation of unlivable conditions. It is the denial of survivability. It is a genocide, and it's happening right in front of our eyes, right now. Governments and international bodies must act now. Compel Israel to cease fire, protect and rebuild Gaza's health systems, reinstate UN, international, and Palestinian support mechanism, allow free and safe passage for humanitarian aid, and ensure the safety of healthcare workers. These actions are critical and must be taken immediately.
As we sit here, starving, exhausted, and injured Palestinian civilians are dying. They are dying because of deliberate Israeli policies, policies that the humanitarian community has warned about for nearly 2 years, to no avail. Inaction by governments and the resulting impunity have brought us to this horrific moment. From the start, what we are witnessing is an attack on the people of Gaza and their ability to survive. As early as October 13, 2023, just 5 days after the horrendous Hamas-led massacre in Israel's south, the Israeli military issued evacuation orders for 22 hospitals in Gaza City and the northern part of the Strip. Where were the thousands of patients and wounded supposed to go? How could they be evacuated while the entire Strip was under heavy bombardment? What medical services would be available for the 1 million residents under evacuation orders? Every person, and certainly health professionals, should have asked these questions, even as the pain from the October 7th attack burned in our bodies. The evacuation orders were the opening shot of an unprecedented attack on Gaza's healthcare system. From the start, Israel portrayed hospitals as legitimate military targets, justifying attacks that would never be tolerated anywhere in the world. Israel claimed Hamas used the hospitals for military purposes, but these claims were unverified and bore no relation to the comprehensive, absolute destruction of an entire system. Over the course of 22 months, Israel systematically dismantled Gaza's health and life-sustaining systems. As assaults continued, medical care collapsed in a cascading sequence, each phase worsening the damage of the last one. Israel's total siege on Gaza deepened the collapse. Patients were barred from being evacuated. Border crossings were closed. Israel almost entirely blocked humanitarian aid. We documented these developments extensively, and based on a careful legal analysis of the facts, we state with a heavy heart, this is a genocide. Today, Physicians for Human Rights Israel is publishing a report detailing Israel's actions in Gaza. We focus on Article 2C of the Genocide Convention, the deliberate infliction of conditions of life calculated to bring about the group's destruction. This legal definition acknowledges that genocide can occur through systemic and infrastructural means, not only through mass killings. We show how Israel's actions have led to the destruction of the conditions necessary for the survival of Palestinians in Gaza. Systematic destruction of the healthcare system, denial of access to food, blocking of medical evacuations, and using humanitarian aid to advance military targets all indicate a clear pattern of conduct, a pattern that reveals intent. Amid this horror, our colleagues and friends, the healthcare workers of Gaza, are acting heroically to save lives, while they themselves are under direct attack. More than 1,500 healthcare workers have already been killed. More than 300 have been detained. It is our duty to support them, ensure their protection, and insist on accountability and justice. Silence in the face of genocide is not an option. We want to stress, confronting genocide is not only the responsibility of legal and political institutions. Confronting it demands urgent action from the global health community. As health professionals and humanitarian actors, we call for global solidarity to defend life, health, and dignity. The destruction of Gaza's health system must end now. We demand the immediate cessation of the attack on Gaza. Lift all restrictions blocking access to life-saving medical care, food, water, humanitarian aid, and essential health infrastructure. Stop the killing. Stop the starvation. Stop the genocide.